Hey there, and welcome back to By His Grace Marriage Ministry Podcast. My name is Amanda. Today's episode is going to be a really beautiful word. I want to talk about ministry within your marriage. Not a marriage ministry, but ministry within your marriage. So, really beautiful word that I want to go ahead and share. I think it's so important that whether you're single, whether you're just stepping into your marriage or you are already in your marriage, regardless the length of time you've been married, it's important to really pray and ask Yahuwah what your and your spouse's purpose is together and what the two of you will do ultimately for Yahuwah and his kingdom and for others. So I'm going to start by saying this. For those of you who have been listening, but maybe you've never heard my very first episode of the podcast, I highly encourage you to do so because that first episode was kind of the foundation of this ministry. And I felt it was important to start with that first. And that was, what are the differences between a godly marriage and a secular marriage? And I listed a few, but one of the most important ones, and that really sets godly marriage apart from the world and from the secular marriage, is that there's purpose and assignments within your marriage, and that is with you and your spouse that go together. They go hand in hand. So your giftings, your calling, your spouse's giftings, their calling goes together. It goes hand in hand for a bigger purpose, for a bigger assignment. So what do we call purposes and assignments and things that we do for others and for Elohim? Well, we call it ministry. We call it ministry, okay? Now, for some of you, you may actually start a ministry or serve in a particular way before you actually come together with your spouse. And then as you come together with your spouse, the two of you will continue to grow in that ministry. For some of you, you won't actually learn what that ministry is until the two of you come together, okay? So let's look at what types of ministries there are. There are several types of ministries. Now, there are deliverance/healing ministries. There are marriage ministries or relationship ministries, right? There are, I just had it. Sorry. Deliverance, marriage ministry. There are music ministries, okay, where you and your spouse could end up leading people in worship and praise. There are, I guess what you would call like church planners, where you and your spouse together will either lead a congregation or a church, or you will begin a church somewhere where there isn't one. So there are all different types of ministries, and that's just a few to name. But I've actually had people ask me, will Yahuwah reveal to you, your purpose? Well, of course he will. And especially if marriage is a part of that, then he's going to reveal it to you. He's going to reveal it to your spouse. And that can happen before the two of you meet. That could happen after you meet. And that could happen as you step into your marriage. It just really depends on his plans for you, because he has a different plan for every couple and for every marriage. Now, of course, another ministry could just be your marriage in itself. I've always said that marriage is a ministry, and for women, it's usually our first ministry. Our home is our first ministry, because ultimately we are serving Yahuwah within our marriages, within our roles, our spousal roles, how we're raising our children, how we're keeping our home, and so on and so forth. So for some of you, your ministry could just be that, to where your marriage itself and your family are the ministry. So for example, you as the wife, you're serving Elohim by serving your husband, by the way that you're bringing up your children, by the way you are teaching them, by the way you keep your home, and by the way you maintain it, and how you nurture your family could be your ministry and could be the way to serve Yahuwah. And you can exemplify to others as well. So husbands, likewise, the kind of husband that you are to your wife, the kind of father that you are, because remember, husbands have an even broader role because they are the heads of the households, the homes, and the marriage. and they are to be the spiritual leaders as well. So that could be your ministry. Other ministries that, I think all ministries are absolutely beautiful, and I give all glory and praise to Yahuwah for the gifts and assignments that he gives his children. But I have seen several couples, several husbands and wives that they will lead others in worship and praise. They are gifted with the ability to play musical instruments. They have beautiful voices where they are able to sing and give praise to Yahuwah. And I have seen some families where they involve their whole family, even their children. Some will go online, like on YouTube, things like that. Others may actually just sing within their congregation or their church, and others might actually travel to different cities, different states, all over the country, go to different places, congregations, churches, and sing. So that's really beautiful as well. Other ministries like deliverance/healing ministries, you and your spouse could be called to heal the sick, or you could be called to deliver, the children of Elohim from, the strongholds and bondages of the demonic forces, right? There are so many people who are oppressed, stuck in stronghold bondages, things like that. And so many people that need those prayers and that help, but you and your spouse could have that mission where, you can lay hands on the sick and heal them, pray for them, help deliver them. There's other ministries where you and your spouse can travel abroad and be missionaries, where you are preaching and sharing the word of Elohim to other countries that have different religions, different gods, different practices, things like that. You and your spouse could also be called to counseling, right? Counseling couples, counseling maybe youth. You could lead a children's ministry as well. And there are many different ways to do that with children ministry. You and your spouse could be called to prison ministry, where you go and you preach the gospel to people who are imprisoned. Or you could, again, if you're in a music ministry, you could go sing at prisons as well. Okay. Another thing is you and your spouse could be called to street preaching, to where you just go within your community or different cities, different towns, and just, start preaching in open air. There are many different ministries, many different callings, and many different ways that we can serve the body of the Messiah. There are ways that we can serve those that are lost, those that are unbelievers, those that, the word of Yahuwah has not reached. And brothers and sisters, that's the purpose of a godly marriage. I was just saying in my episode yesterday, the first episode, that, being married has a much bigger picture to it. It's not just about, entering into a relationship with someone, living with someone, having a family with them, and that's it. Just if you are literally living just your everyday life where, you get up, women, you take care of the home, you are, taking care of the kids and whatnot, and that's your day every day. You're not doing anything for Yeshua, then there's something wrong. Men, if all you're doing is getting up, going to work, coming home, having a meal, spending some time with your family, going back, get up the next day and do the same thing, there's something wrong. There's something missing. And that's why I was saying in my first episode of this podcast ministry, I wanted to share the differences, because a secular marriage is what I just explained. It's just your ordinary day-to-day things, but a godly marriage has assignment and purpose attached to it. Okay. Also, for some of you, your ministry and your assignment could be your spouse, to where you're going to help bring your spouse back to their faith, help them to understand who they are in the Messiah, their identity, what their purpose is, because you're a part of it. So you're going to be able to help them see that. Okay, so, and for some of you, it could be a combination of different ministries. But what I want to encourage couples, or if you're single, or you are preparing to step into your marriage, you are already married, I want to encourage you to go into prayer, whether individually or together as a couple. If you are not sure what your calling is together, if you are not sure what ministry that He is calling you into, I want to encourage you to pray about it. And He will reveal it to you if He hasn't already. If He has revealed it to you and you're not sure how to go about it, keep praying. If there's fear, or if there's something stopping you or blocking you, pray about it and rebuke that fear, renounce that spirit of fear. Now, if you know that you're being called, now not every couple will be called into full-time ministry, okay? Not every husband and wife will be called into full-time ministry. For some of you, you could be called in a full-time ministry. Now, if you are called in a full-time ministry, this is where things get a bit difficult, but this is where your faith comes in. And I have actually heard testimonies of this. I know of a few people who have given up everything, their jobs, everything, to do full-time ministry. And these were people who were married and have a family, they have children. They gave up, the husbands gave up their jobs. The women, if they were working, they gave up their jobs to focus on their full-time ministry, okay? And each and every one of them all said the same thing, that when they did that and they started to focus on their ministry full-time for the glory of Yahuwah and for others, Yahuwah provided all of their needs. All of their needs, because there are some people, especially the husbands, that say, how am I supposed to give up my job to do full-time ministry? Then how am I going to provide for my family? This is where your faith comes in. Now, again, for some of you men, your job is attached to your ministry, okay? So maybe for some of you, you might have a job that is preparing you for your ministry, or again, it's intertwined. For some of you, you might be going to school that might help you. So for example, maybe a part of your ministry is going to be providing godly counsel to others, and you decide to take some classes for that. Now, I'm going to say this though, if you are called into ministry, which most of you will be or are, you do not need to go to school. Excuse me. I know in this country, we are told and made to believe that in order to minister in a church, in order to be in a ministry, in order to give counsel, in order to do A, B, and C, you have to go to school and you have to have a title. I'm going to tell you this, and this is something that the Ruach revealed to me with my own calling. Okay? Yahuwah does not call the qualified. He qualifies who He calls. Okay? You do not have to have a title. You do not have to go to school. You do not have to have a degree. You do not have to have a certificate. You don't have to do none of that. Okay? Now, if part of your ministry is you're going to help heal people by way of being a doctor and maybe doing surgeries, things like that, then yeah, obviously you need specific education for that, obviously. But let me tell you something. In my years of seeing ministry, different ministries, and just hearing different brothers and sisters share their stories and their testimonies, many of them did not go to school. Like college and things like that. Many of them did not do that. Yahuwah called them and qualified them to do the ministry that they've been called to do. Now, if you're someone that you've already gone to school like me, I went to college. Of course, I realized afterwards that it wasn't something that was a part of His plans for my life, but He went ahead and took it and used it anyways. So for those of you that have gone to school or you are currently in school, maybe it was something you didn't pray about and ask Him if that was a part of, His plans for your life. He can still use it, okay? He can still use it unless you've gone to school for something that is not a part of your purpose. It's not a part of your calling. Then it's a waste. It's wasted time. So I want to encourage that as well. That's why it's so important that we pray whether you're single, whether you're just barely stepping into your marriage, or even if you are in your marriage, whether you've been married 6 months, a year, or a few years, if you don't know what that is, what your purpose and your calling is, then I highly encourage you to pray about it. And if you're already married, you need to come together with your spouse and pray about it. Pray and just ask, how can we be serving, Elohim, and how can we serve others? And like I said, you could be, and this is what I love about godly marriages. This is the most beautiful thing to me. There are a lot of beautiful aspects of godly marriage, but this is what is the most appealing and most beautiful thing to me about godly marriage, is two people that are in love with one another, but their love for Yahuwah is even more, and their love for others is more. And they can stand side by side, whether it's in front of a camera to live stream or post a video on some social media platform, whether it's standing side by side in front of a congregation, whether you're standing in a prison ministering to inmates, whether you are laying your hands together on the sick, whether you are interceding for somebody together, whether you're counseling together, whatever it is that you are doing, whether you're singing and giving praise to Elohim together, that is the most beautiful thing to me, and especially when you involve your children. You go out and witness, you take your children with you. You sing and give praise to Elohim, your children are there with you doing it as well. There is nothing more beautiful to me than seeing that. Absolutely nothing more beautiful than seeing a husband and wife side by side serving others and serving Elohim and glorifying Him together. I think that's absolutely beautiful. And it's something that I prayed so much even in my own life, and when I've had singles ask me, how do I know that this is the person for me? Of course, other than the obvious, praying and asking Yahuwah to confirm it, to reveal it. But the number one way that you're going to know that this person is for you is that your callings go together. Okay? You both have the same love, the same passion. It could be that you both, love children and want to help children. It could be that you both have compassion and a heart for the less fortunate, which is another ministry I forgot to mention. You could be out there raising, money for the poor and for those that are in need, and just helping those who are less fortunate. You both could have a heart for marriage and want to help others, kind of like what I'm doing. You both may have a desire to travel to other countries and share the gospel with those that don't know it. That's how you're going to know that this person is for you. And the physical way that you're going to know is your spirits are going to recognize one another. There's going to be a spiritual connection. I've talked about this before within my first season of how to tell when this person is your spouse. But the number one way is that you both are going to share the same vision. You both are going to have the same desires. You're going to have the same hearts for the same things. If you're both in disagreement about what that is, it doesn't automatically mean that you're not meant to go together. It could be, together. It could be, it's just something that now you both need to pray about together. Sometimes we don't always get it right. Sometimes, we may be a bit confused, or we could have misunderstood the leading of the Ruach or the Holy Spirit. But the number one way to know that this person is your spouse is that you're going to share the same vision on how you're going to serve Elohim and how you're going to serve others. Because remember, it's not about you. It's not just about your marriage. It's about what you two together within your marriage are going to do for one another, for your children, for your grandchildren, and for the people that are out there, the body of the Messiah, the lost, the sick. So that is really what it's all about. That is really what it's all about. Ministry. How you will minister to others. How you will minister to your family. How you will be able to raise up the next generation. The next generation are your children. The generation after that are your grandchildren, right? Every child of Elohim is given a purpose, an anointing, an assignment, and gifts and talents. You could have been given the ability to heal people, to lay hands on the sick and heal people. You have that gifting to be able to pray and pray for people, right? You might have that ability and gifting to go and stand in a corner on the street and preach the gospel and preach the truth. Or to be able to walk into a prison, which can be an intimidating place, and be able to share the good news with them. You may have been given the gift to help understand relationships and be able to help counsel people with relationship issues or circumstances or situations. You know, everybody is given a different purpose, but when Abba has marriage as a part of your will, he's going to put you together with somebody that's going to share that with you. Okay. So if you are single and Yahuwah has revealed to you your calling and your purpose, let's just say you're going to be helping kids. Okay. And you meet somebody and you share with them what you want to do, what you love, what you're passionate about. And they say, that's great, but you know, I'd rather focus on this, or I'd rather, if they can't even support the ministry that you're going to be in and you're going to be doing, they're not from Yah. That's not your spouse. Now, I've had people ask me, could I be called to ministry but my spouse isn't? It's possible, but they have to support you. If they don't support your vision, if they don't support what Yahuwah is calling you to, they're not your spouse. But I'll be honest with you, a godly marriage is both spouses serve together. Is usually how it goes. And there are some cases where maybe one spouse does focus on ministry more and the other one just kind of focuses more on other things, you know, like work, stuff like that. But from what I've always seen, it's usually they do the ministry together. And be prepared, because when you are called into full-time ministry, be prepared to make sacrifices. Be prepared to really lean on your faith. Because if both husband and wife are called to ministry full-time, then that means that ultimately that husband is going to have to cut back on his job. He won't be able to do both. In most cases, he won't be able to do both. And that's where you really have to have faith and trust that he provides all of our needs. And let me tell you, there are plenty of scriptures that say that especially when we are obedient to him, to his word, his commandments, and his will for our lives, he will provide our needs and he will bless us. And I have seen testimonies of husbands and wives, husbands specifically, who have left their jobs to do full-time ministry alongside their wives. And of course, if you're raising a family, you still have to raise your family, you know, absolutely. And you can do that, especially if your ministry is a ministry that takes you on the road. Of course, you're going to have to take your children. The thing is, Abba will give you the way and the understanding of how to balance all of that out. But for some of you husbands, you may be called to leave your jobs full-time, or to leave your jobs to be in ministry full-time. So just be prepared for that, you know, and just be in prayer and just take it one day at a time and ask him to lead you and to guide you into the next steps, to give you strength, to give you faith. But I tell you what, and even though it's not easy, just like I've said, anything that we do for Yahuwah is not always easy. We're going to be persecuted. We're going to go through trials. But there's so much reward and blessings for it, being a part of that. And there's nothing more beautiful than seeing a husband and wife together serving in ministry. And you know what? I feel it blesses your marriage and it strengthens your marriage. Some people feel it might put a toll. You know what? My thing is, if things give you a toll, if things become negative, then you're not on the right path. Because anything that we ultimately do for Yahuwah, He provides and He will bless it. Yes, we'll go through some hard times, but that's so our faith grows. But anything that ultimately is from Him is reward, and it's a blessing. So that is my word on ministry within marriage. And again, if you are called to a godly marriage, that is what your marriage is all about. It's going to be some type of ministry, some type of way that you and your spouse are going to come together and serve. And if you don't know what that is yet, I highly encourage you today to start praying for that. Start praying for that guidance, for that direction. If you don't even know what you as an individual, what your gifts are, what you're passionate about, start praying about it and start reading scripture, and He will reveal it to you. If you're married, come together, pray together about it. Even if you're single, but maybe you know who your spouse is, maybe you're separated time or something, intercede for them as well. Pray for them that they also know, so that when the time comes for the two of you to come together, you're both in agreement. Okay? So that is my word on ministry within marriage. I pray that it blesses you, gives you hope and encouragement. My next episode, I'm going to start talking about praying. So stay tuned for that. And by His grace, I will begin that as well. So thank you so much for listening, and I will talk with you in my next episode.